So printmaking, oh boy, I'm going to do a whole series of videos on that because that is terribly complicated. There are a lot of different processes that I'll never even talk about all of them, even if I wanted to set aside a couple of months just trying to brush up on some of them and to explain how these processes work. It's just terribly complicated, and you'll have to believe me on that until you start doing printmaking yourself and learning a bit more about them. But if you tackle each type of printmaking at a time, it can be really fantastically cool and fun. Some of them aren't even all that complicated. You've probably done some, for instance. Just an example is a rubber stamp. That's a relief type of relief printmaking. Super simple, no big deal. I don't know if you ever did this when you were a kid. If not, you ought to do it with kids, or today just by yourself or whatever. Grab yourself a good stiff potato, cut it in half, and then take a permanent marker or something. Well, dab it so just in case the moisture is too much. Get it nice and dry on the surface. Then draw whatever shape you like. Then you can take a knife and cut around and remove the stuff around the thing you drew, and then you can just carefully press that into rubber stamp mat if you happen to have those around, or a little bit of paint or something, whatever kind of thing you might happen to have around, and then you can use that as basically a crudely made rubber stamp that you've made yourself. So you're making printmaking out of that. So this brings me to more of the actual definition of printmaking. Now there is also an exception to the definition here, but the overarching rule of thumb of printmaking is that it is an indirect process of mark making that can be reproduced. That's the general, but there are exceptions to every good rule. Case in point, monoprint is a type of printmaking that, as the name indicates, can only make one image at a time. Like, you can only make that one image one time. Mono print just one time, but it's still an indirect mark making thing. For instance, if you ever did this when you were a kid, take leaves in the fall and then paint one side up and then lay it down onto a piece of paper and press it down really good, and then pull it up, and then you got yourself a print of that leaf. Awesome, really cool, and can turn out really well if you do a few of them in practice. Great stuff. That can't ever really be produced in the exact same way again. You can still paint the same color all over the same leaf, but every single time you do that, it's not going to look exactly the same. Might be really close, but it's never going to be the same exact thing again. That's one type of monoprint. So anyway, I'll talk about types of monoprints and other kinds of things later on sometime. But remember, printmaking is an indirect mark making process, which means that you're not drawing, painting, or whatever onto the final piece. Say, this is going to be my final print of this printmaking process. I will never actually draw or write on this as the print itself. I will have to actually press, squeeze things onto it, or some other indirect way of making the marks on there instead of me directly drawing or painting something on there. Printmaking.